Survival games have always been amongst the most immersive on the market, driving us towards the brink of death just to merely outlast the harsh environment. In 2024, there have been a multitude of games that are up to the challenge, even with competing against the juggernauts that have stamped the genre for years. In this list, I have the best survival games that were released in 2024, in order by release date that I think would really pique your interest. Palworld is a game developed by Pocket Pair Studios in mid-January. In this game, you venture around a plane filled with cartoon creatures known as pals. You can catch these pals, which will help you on your journey through various tasks such as crafting, defending your base from dangers, and fighting other pals or players who get in your way. This Pokemon-like world caters greatly to those who grew up on Nintendo's classic series and would certainly enjoy the nostalgic rebirth with a separate company. Enshrouded, released by Keen Games in mid-January, is an open-world survival-like game where you explore a fantasy world, venture through immersive landscapes, while building some of the most incredible bases ever seen in this genre. The game also has a constant haze known as the Shroud, which corrupts everything inside its domain, and even damages your character. This also serves as a way to keep low-level characters from entering high-level zones, while letting thrill seekers enter at their own risk. The crafting system is better than most, and the graphics are breathtaking, although Enshrouded could be taken as either survival or not, due to a hunger setting. The pace with which the game is played makes for a decent argument on its validity in this list. Challenge yourself to a solo run or bring 15 others to brave it with you on this great journey. Nightingale is a first-person open-world survival game where you can either play as a solo or with friends. It was released in mid-February by Inflection Games. In this game, you travel through portals to visit randomly generated worlds. In these worlds, you build, craft, fight, and explore the different areas the game has to offer. You will play as a traveler who fled the Nightingale due to a calamity, which is a land created by the Fae. The visuals and Victorian theme to this title is incredible, but sometimes the random generation of the landscapes makes certain planes look a bit off the mark. If you're looking for a visually stunning game with seemingly endless lore around every corner, Nightingale is worth a shot. Pacific Drive is a driving survival game released in mid-February by Ironwood Studios. In this game, you will drive across a horrific landscape where you will be constantly upgrading your car and improving your car as you delve deeper into the game. The chilling atmosphere and crisp sound effects really draw into the haunting excursions between checkpoints. Unlike similar titles, you get to choose your own path, for better or for worse. Bellwright is a medieval open-world survival crafting RPG that feels very similar to Medieval Dynasty, but with a lot of elements reminiscent of the Mount and Blade franchise. Released by Donkey Crew in mid-April, currently the game feels very well polished, especially with a massive update, adding much needed quality of life, story, non-linear decision making, and a much more refined combat system. In this game, you are a vagabond to a new land. In this land, you try to make a name for yourself and grow your settlement, all the while dealing with constant bandit attacks and the harsh survival elements for both you and your companions. The game has tantalizing graphics, multiple different ways to play the game, as well as many unique fighting styles. Challenge yourself to a solo game or coordinate with up to 3 others as you fight to rule over the lands and eradicate the tyranny in this medieval masterpiece. The Manor Lords game is one of the most authentic city builders you will ever play. Not as flashy, but straightforward to how it would be for a medieval time frame. In this game, there are massive battles, an intricate economy, and plenty of decisions that will make a huge impact on the game down the road. In this game, you're ideally trying to conquer all the land, which puts a heavy focus on growing and expanding your settlement. The game was released in late April and has attracted more buzz than I normally hear for city building games, making this an ideal choice if that is your preferred genre. Abiotic Factor, which was released in early May by Deepfield Games, is a strange twist in your typical survival crafting game. Unlike the majority of survival games, this is a lot more story-driven. It also has a lot of complex puzzles and resources to attempt to manage for an up to 6-player party. So although the majority of other survival games have an emphasis on combat prowess, this one seems to be built more around deep thinking to survive the random and crazy encounters that come up. The graphics seemed a bit subpar to the standards I'd usually hold for the survival genre, but once the random items were found in game, and were improvisable for a unique version of survival crafting, the game became much more enjoyable. Serum, released by Game Island Studios in late May, is a futuristic open-world survival game. In this game, you are placed in a contaminated environment where you rely on scavenging for mutagens from certain specimens to grant temporary powers to traverse the game. Unlike other survival titles, this game has more of a focus on preparation, similar to games such as Fallout or Resident Evil. The game also boasts a very complex crafting system. The visuals are detailed for the style of game, as it brings a feeling of desolation, and the audio mimics a sort of psychological dread when combat is nigh. Although you should be warned that the graphics requirements are higher than most, and many have struggled to run the game on a consistent frame rate. The game is still in early access, with time to ideally fix these issues, which allows Serum to be an ideal choice for those who enjoy open-world survival games. Soulmask, a multiplayer survival game released at the end of May by Coolant Games, takes place in a mysterious setting. You narrowly escape being sacrificed by a savage tribe and find a mask, which allows you infinite knowledge and the power to manipulate the world around you. In Soulmask, you try to survive in a harsh environment surrounded by other tribes, whilst also building your own following as you discover the origins behind the mask. The game offers you a typical thrall system when compared to Conan Exiles, but the leveling system adds for a more enjoyable gameplay loop. The landscapes are beautiful, and the characters look decent. The main issues I had with this game was the lack of a plot, the comical combat moves, and the grind of keeping thralls well supplied in multiplayer servers, which resulted in me being completely wiped out in a day's time. Still Wakes the Deep is a story-rich psychological horror game released by a group called the Chinese Room in mid-June. The title feels a lot like a walking simulator with an incredible narrative. You're on an oil rig in 1975 off the coast of Scotland. Every day you work on the rig in dark and foreboding areas, as grotesque horror slaughters those around you. The first-person perspective, along with the nightmarish atmosphere, brings on a terrifying experience. The game has incredible dialogue, especially for what you'd expect during the time frame, and the main flaw with this subgenre of survival games is a lack of replayability, as it has very linear outcomes. That being said, the first experience is well worth the price if you want a good thrill. Aska is a third-person Viking survival game created by Sand Sailor Studio. In Aska, you are a Viking leader who gets stranded in uncharted territory. There you must build and manage a self-sustaining tribe to thrive against all odds. Your tribe will help you with crafting, hunting, and fighting enemies, including bosses, on a procedurally generated world. The main aspect that sets Aska apart from other survival games is the setup for developing your followers and training them to help you along the way. The game runs well, but in a lot of ways doesn't really have anything new brought to the survival experience. But if you enjoy a challenging game where you need to figure things out as you go, Aska is worth considering. Once Human is a multiplayer open-world survival crafting game set in a post-apocalyptic future. In this game, you team up with friends to fight monstrous enemies, battle for resources, and mark territories for yourself as you seek to control the old world and remake it into something better. The game offers a unique storyline, an incredible atmospheric environment, and a simple yet rewarding crafting system. The building construction is unique. The game resets progress after every season ends, typically through the progression of a battle pass, and the game feels as though it's missing some additional content. But seeing as it's a free-to-play game, there's no reason not to give it a shot. Dawn of Defiance is a title released much earlier than originally projected by Trega Entertainment in mid-August. Compared to the other options on this list, this game is a wild card when it comes to its full potential. Dawn of Defiance is a Greek mythology-inspired open-world survival crafting game where you start as a soldier, growing in power along the way, whilst taking on the trials placed by the Greek gods themselves. The graphics are amazing as the game is run on Unreal Engine 5, but most other portions of the game are extremely repetitive and raise a question on if the game should be purchased in this unfinished state. If you want a complete survival game, you should be cautious before purchasing this one, as the company is currently relying on extra support through paid DLCs to finish the necessary updates for an early access release. Frostpunk 2, the sequel, released in mid-September by 11-Bit Studios, is a post-apocalyptic city-building survival game in which you try to survive a ceaseless winter while also seeking to rule the other factions you experience in the game. The decision-making mechanics are very brutal, normally leading to many questionable decisions with dreadful results. The graphics are visually stunning, and the overall gameplay is befitting of the genre. The main differences between the sequel and the original are that the time frame is 30 years after the first game, the larger citizen cap overall has been vastly increased, seemingly to manage thousands of citizens as opposed to its original 600 total, and a narrative system built around the decisions you make, which can result in poor relations in the form of uprisings or other detrimental scenarios, making Frostpunk 2 an economical challenge. Duckside by tinyBuild is a multiplayer survival crafting game very similar to Rust, except that you play as a duck. The graphics in the game are well suited for the comical aspect of fighting others to be the alpha of the server. Duckside allows the use of both firearms and melee weapons, as well as offering decent structural variety for base creation. So if you want a goofy twist on a survival juggernaut, Duckside might be the game for you. Silent Hill 2: The Remake is a psychological survival horror title released by Konami in early October. Your character goes to Maine after the loss of his wife. Despite the warnings, you still go there, based solely on a letter you received from your wife prior, only to find a demonic ghost town. In this game, you must solve puzzles, fight monsters, and search for clues in regards to your wife. The remake has improved graphics quality, bone-chilling sound effects, and a variety of enemies that the previous version had never seen, making this undoubtedly the best survival horror game of the year. Unrailed 2 is a cooperative roguelike survival game released by Indoor Astronaut Studios in early November. In this game, you conduct a train through different regions as either a solo or with up to 3 others in an attempt to keep the train running smoothly. The game is at the heart of it very simple. Keep tracks in front of the train so the game doesn't end. The cartoony visuals are catered to a family-friendly crowd, and the cheerful music and sneaky twists make for more fun sessions. Unreal 2 has more optimized graphics and animations than the first, as well as new mechanics which allow for battling the more challenging gameplay. What sets this game apart from other survival games are the roguelike elements that show up at different checkpoints, making every run at least a little different than the one prior. Towers of Aghasba is an open-world survival RPG that was released by Dreamlit Inc. in mid-November. In the game, you are a traveling people called the Shimu that are returning to their home after a terrible event, but now must fend off the Withered to survive. Although the game has minimal concern when it comes to the survival threat, the exploration and combat required fully to witness the world is enticing, allowing for gradual progression as you level throughout the game. The graphics quality when it comes to the creatures and environment is above the competition. However, it has many bugs in-game in regards to the quality of life, building, co-op, the inventory system, etc. that makes the purchase of it in this unfinished state more of a risk for its cost. Stalker 2, released by GSC Game World in mid-November, is an FPS, open-world, post-apocalyptic survival game where you play as a stalker in a lawless land looking for riches and fortune however you can find it in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. The zone is full of deadly foes and powerful artifacts. The in-game decisions help make the game less linear than others in the survival genre, and the storyline supposedly lasts a minimum of 29 hours. That is, if you can look past the top-notch graphics that beckon you to explore the vast open world around you and not dive deep into the side quests just as everyone ends up doing in every single Skyrim run. All of this combined makes this game an unbeatable choice as it guarantees multiple long playthroughs. Ruins to Fortress is a 2D side-scrolling survival game with PvP, PvE, and co-op potential. Although the game is not yet released by Nimblebeasts, it brings a more retro feel to a typically high-end genre. In Ruins to Fortress, you will venture through a post-apocalyptic land where you can craft bases and bring your enemies to their knees. The game offers a variety of tasks which can be crucial to your survival in this up-and-coming gem. And there you have it, the top 20 best survival games from 2024. If you're still watching, thanks for sticking around, and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next video. This was my first time uploading this type of content, so if you have suggestions for the next video, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.